I thank everyone for tuning in today. This is Touton Live, a weekly conversation that we do with owners, winemakers, and distillers of our top estates. And my name is David Hunter. I'll be hosting today's event. And today we're thrilled to be going live from Chile with Emmanuel Riffaud. He is the general manager of Baron Philippe de Rothschild in Maipo, Chile. So thank you for joining us, Emmanuel. How are you doing today?
Yeah, fine. Thank you, Dave. First of all, thank you all to be here, and welcome in Chile, here in Maipo Valley, in the heart of the Maipo Valley. I'm just in my back, the winery of Escudo Rojo, Baron Philippe de Rothschild Maipo Chile winery, and it's here in Maipo Valley. When we decided more than 20 years ago, or the Baroness Philippe de Rothschild decided to first time came in Chile. It was here in the Maipo Valley. She decided to, first of all, create an iconic wine, Almaviva, and then Escudo Rojo, as you know, which is the literal translation of Rothschild in Spanish. Das Rothschild, Rothschild, Escudo Rojo. So we are here in the base of the story of Maipo Chile.
That's very cool. So thanks for the introduction real quickly. And I want to show everyone on the map before we get officially started here. So let me just show a few maps just so people are oriented with where we're at today. So we're with
we are at 45 minutes in the south of Santiago, just for the localization.
Yeah, so just south of Santiago. So I have a map up here showing Argentina in the red, and then Chile in the green, and you can see Santiago there, right in the dead center. So we're just south of Santiago, and then if I could zoom into this other map, it'll show you a little closer. You can see the Maipo Valley just south of Santiago. So we're right in the heart of Chile, right next to the Andes Mountains. So from there, Emmanuel, I want to turn it over to you. Give us a bit of history. So the Baroness had the vision to start a winery 30 years ago in Chile. So tell us a bit about how that happened. Tell me a bit about your history too, because I'm very interested in you and where you got started and how you wound up in Chile as well.
So you know, just about the history of Rothschild in Chile. I think the Baroness decided to invest in Chile as her father did in '79 with Opus One in California, looking for really best place for Cabernet Sauvignon, and she really wanted to have her own experience with Chilean terroir, and she was really confident in the Chilean terroir, so that's why she decided to invest first in the Maipo Valley, because when we did the tasting of every region in terms of wine production we had in Chile, Maipo Valley was really the best valley for Cabernet Sauvignon. And why Cabernet Sauvignon? Because it's really the know-how and the gravity of the company. We are in the left bank of Bordeaux, in Pauillac, which is really the best place for Cabernet Sauvignon. So that's shortly the story of why we decided Maipo Valley first, and why she decided to create first Almaviva based on a blend with Cabernet Sauvignon, and then Escudo Rojo also with Cabernet Sauvignon. And yes.
Tell me just a bit about you, because I know you're from Cognac originally, right? How did you wind up in Chile?
Yes. I'm born in Cognac, so obviously it was like logical to be in the wine industry, and then I moved to Bordeaux, and I was in charge of the technical winemaking of Mouton Cadet or all the brand wine from Rothschild in Bordeaux, and then I moved more than 12 years ago in Chile to be in charge of the technical managing process of Escudo, and then now as a head winemaker and a general manager. So I'm very pleased here in Chile. It's a fantastic country for the vines and the wine.
So that's impressive. So you're a winemaker first of all, and then you're a winemaker there in Chile, and then took over to managing the estate, which makes perfect sense because you know everything from start to finish. So it's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, so tell us a bit about Maipo, about the terroir. Tell us where you're situated within the valley.
So we are in the heart of Maipo, as I said, and we have our own vineyard here around the winery. It's more or less 60 hectares, and I can show you, for example, the vines of Cabernet Sauvignon that we have here. We are using in Escudo, Grand Reserva, Origin, and also in Baronesa. We are going to present you a few minutes later. And just to show you, because I can't resist to show you, this is really so beautiful, you know. It's the flowering process just in
Oh,
that
cool.
moment in Chile. So, you know, this is the small future grapes for Escudo, and we maybe using for Escudo Gran Reserva or Origin, I don't know. But this is the flowering process, which is, you know, very important moment in the vegetable cycle, because if the flowing process is really good and quite quick, it's very benefit for the future grapes. So that's, you can see we are really a low production and very good to a very small, you know, this is really small grape. This is with you know, we finish the flowering process.
Oh,
And
cool.
if you can notice, you know, in this vineyard, we are managing also with some grass here, because we are managing as a sustainable way. It's very important for us because we decided to move more than 2 years ago in terms of sustainable approach, more global approach. So we manage all our vineyards without any pesticide, any herbicide, only organic products and organic compost, to respect obviously the terroir, because as our philosophy, it's really to express the purest taste of the terroir. So we want to express the taste of Maipo, and Maipo, it's an alluvial valley. So you have a lot of, you know, sandy and some limestone, and also a lot of stones. You have, it depends if you are closer or not from the river Maipo, and you have some stones, very important. And it's very useful for Cabernet Sauvignon, because Cabernet Sauvignon likes stress to express the purest concentration. So that's really important.
So let me ask you a quick question. So, well, just to fill in our Northern Hemisphere friends who are joining us today. So, the Southern Hemisphere is 6 months opposite us. So, as we're heading into fall and winter, they're just starting spring. So, flowering, and
Exactly.
flowering only lasts maybe what, a week? It's a very short period of time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's 1 week. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's very rare for us to see that in person. So it's really cool just to be in the vineyards, and we haven't had many opportunities during these conversations to actually be in the vineyards. So it's very cool to see that. Emmanuel, a question just came across. I wanted to ask you. Someone was asking, how old are those vines in that vineyard specifically?
These vines are 17 years old,
Okay.
and the average vineyard we have in Maipo, it's around 20 to 25 years old.
Okay, so that's perfect. So six
Yeah,
years, they just kind of start to produce, but once you hit that 15 to 20, 30-year range, it's really the sweet spot. So it's really perfect.
yeah,
So, and you mentioned quickly, I want to just reiterate that. So you mentioned it's 63 hectares there of your estate property. To translate that into
yeah.
acres, acres for our American friends here, that's 156 acres. So it's a big property. And that's not the only property you work with, right? You also have some long-term contracts further south in other areas, right?
Yes, because I imagine you saw on the map, Chile is a very long country, and but very tiny. So you have a lot of difference between north to south. So that's why we have the white coming from Casablanca Valley. It's a small valley in between Santiago and the Pacific Ocean, Valparaiso. And then we have Maipo Valley with Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Syrah. And then more in Colchagua Valley, we have Cabernet, which is really very good valley for Cabernet, because Cabernet likes, you know, good humidity in the soil. Usually Cabernet doesn't like hydric stress. So it's very important to manage the terroir and to look for the best adequation, grab variety terroir. So that's why we decided to have a different plot. And we also have another big vineyard. It's 960 hectares in the Maule Valley, with 283 hectares planted.
Wow,
So
that's
we
huge.
use this different area to create more assemblage style that really the know-how of Baron Philippe de Rothschild.
No, and that makes perfect sense because, like you said, there's different grapes, like different climates, different soils, and then when we're looking at the map here with everyone, and you know, not just north to south, but you have east to west. So you have the coast, then you have the valley, then you have
Yes. Yeah.
the elevations in the Andes. So the high
Yeah.
elevation makes a big difference too.
Yeah, because we can play between north and south, but also east and west. if you play a little bit more with the Andes Cordillera influence or more with the Pacific Ocean with the influence we are used for the white, for example, or Pinot Noir.
It's very unique, and I can't think of any other place in the world where you have such big variances within one country. It's really it's got to be very cool as a winemaker.
No, it's very impressive because in Chile we have 100,000 100,000 hectares, and it's more or less the same superficie that you have in Bordeaux. And if you compare to Bordeaux, north to south in Bordeaux, it's 150 kilometers. In Chile, it's 1,500 kilometers. So
Wow.
just imagine, it's 10 times more than in Bordeaux. So just imagine if you stretch Bordeaux from, I would say, the Nordics to the north of Africa. So just imagine all the difference you have in terms of terroir. So it's something magical as a winemaker to play with all these areas.
Yeah, it's very cool. And another question just came across. How far are the vineyards from the Andes? Are those the Andes right behind you, or?
No, the Andes are, we don't see the Andes, it's the other way. So you can't see the Andes in my back, And
Yes. Oh, yeah, I do see them back there. So
and here,
how far? How many kilometers roughly?
it's 120 kilometers. Just and if you see here, this is the coast Cordillera, So in my back, it's the coast Cordillera. So we have the Andes Cordillera, the coast Cordillera, and also the Central Valley, which is in the middle. And if you see, for example, as I said, the stones we have with the Maipo River, because the Maipo River is just on the bottom of this coast Cordillera we see on the.
That's okay.
And then you have the stones. They show you, these stones are really typical of the Maipo River. This
so
is the alluvial, like in the Rhone in France. Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to mention, I see right behind you, we have the reception area. So I know everything is done by hand, small production, in small bins. I know there's a lot of attention to detail there that you're focusing on. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, we are working as a concept. We call it like a Chateau Grand Cru concept. And that means it's obviously an harvesting process. We have a 10 kilo box. And then this 10 kilo box we are using in this selection. This selection, we are using the same in Rothschild or also in Almaviva. So it's really the high qualitative process of selection. The first one is hand selection. Then obviously we have the distemming process just to extract only the berries. And then till 2018, we invest in this new machine, which is an optical selection. And it's very important because we have the photography of each berries and the selection of each berries coming then with this conveyor belt. So we select only the perfect berries and the berries we want to use after for the vinification, and use this conveyor belt to have a gravity alimentation of the vats, because we are in a seismic country, as you know, so it was much better to use this conveyor belt instead of subterranean winery.
Right.
So it's very high qualitative process, and it's very important because it's a slow process, but very qualitative, and it permits to also separate all the batch we have in terms of microterroir approach, because the most important also to explain, as you say, when you have one parcel, you have some different areas and different specificities. So we work on these specificities. And as I say, that we work at the micro-terroir approach, it's like the chateau. So in the same parcel, we use maybe some plot only for Grand Reserva, maybe for Reserva range, or maybe for Baronesa or Regine. So this selection of micro-terroir, we did it obviously using our experience of Chile, but using also new technologies. We call it like electroconductivity. So we check with the mapping of the electroconductivity system the specific area in one parcel, and determine which area we are using for this range or the other range.
Oh,
So that's
cool.
really important.
Are you using drones to do that, or satellites, or how are you doing that mapping?
Yeah, we are using with two ways. We have drones, but we also have like a motor, and then you have like electric signals. We send electric signal in the soil, and
Ah,
depending on the response of the electric signals, it gives you some information if the soil is much more with sand or much more humidity and much more stone. And then you have the mapping with colors, and then we check obviously according this mapping. We test and to determine, for example, with the maturity process, the right moment of each batch for the harvest. And that's really important for us.
that's a lot of
We have
work,
some
right?
wind, so just moved to the winery just
Sure,
to
of course. No,
avoid
let's head to
the
the winery. And while you're walking to
yeah
the winery, I just wanted to let everyone know. You mentioned quickly about the reception process and the investment in an optical sorter. An optical sorter is the coolest thing. So as the destemmed grapes are heading up the conveyor belt, it identifies them and it kicks the bad ones off with a puff of air. So it separates the bad ones from the good ones in split seconds. It's amazing to watch. If you've never seen an optical sorter, Google it on YouTube. It's fascinating, and it's a very expensive machine, but it makes just brings up the quality of the wine that much more.
yeah. So
So
welcome in the winery, Escudo Winery. So you know if you can see on the top, we have two other conveyor belts, and these two conveyor belts are just here to recept all the berries coming from the selection, obviously, and then to go into each vat we decided to full it. So, and then all the winery is very classical one, using a stainless tank because obviously it's better in terms of sanitization, in terms of process. We also use temperature control. And the process of the vinification is very traditional. It's like a Bordelais traditional. But the specificity we use it's a la carte vinification. So that means we never use any recipes. We use only the tasting, and we test every day, every batch, and we adapt all the process, all the management of the vinification according to the tasting. So it's really trying to extract the best of each batch we had to then decided if it's this batch is going much more in a reserva, in the Grand Reserva, or origin or Baronesa assemblage, I would say. So very classical vinification, and at the end of this vinification, we use to mix traditional process with new technology as for temperature control, but the press we are using are the very traditional press. We are using the same in Mouton Rothschild on Elman Beaver. So very qualitative press, and then we decided according to the testing, the selection, and the selection also for the aging, if it's an aging 100% in oak or still in vat, and it decided also if it's new oak or 1 year old, and depending also on the type of chauffe of the oak, it's very important. And all this we are managing as the chateau concept with tasting every day and selecting all the batch we are thinking it's the best batch for obviously for aging in oak.
So you're using the term batch, and I know you work with so many acres of property. How many batches do you think you manage there in an average harvest?
We try to manage the most batch we can. That means obviously it's more complicated,
Yeah.
but if you have, I just want to explain very very shortly. If you have, I would say 5 or 10 batches, I would say you only have 5 or 10 possibilities. If you use 50 batches, you will have 50 possibilities. So just imagine that you can blend then this batch with the other one. If are all Cabernet Sauvignon, it's very important to match 2 Cabernet Sauvignon with 2 characteristics. Because if you mix one Cabernet Sauvignon coming from a specific area, a micro terroir with a lot of stone, it's not the same Cabernet Sauvignon. For example, if you compare with the Cabernet Sauvignon coming from more sandy condition or more humid condition, and we using this to create like an assemblage of Cabernet Sauvignon to create a unique cuvée of Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's really something we're using in the company, and I say the art of the assemblage, it's more coming from Rothschild, but it's very interesting. It's I think it's really the passionate moment when you are tasting all the batches and you say, okay, I will add 2% of this, 1% of that, and it changed completely the style of the wine. So that's what we prefer, and I prefer, working in that way, because maybe it's more complicated, but it's looking for more excellency, which is also part of the DNA of the company.
And I respect blenders so much. I've tried blending a few times, and it is so difficult. You taste even 5 things that all taste good individually, but then you try to blend them together to make something more complex and more interesting, and it's very, very difficult. It's very easy to wind up with mud. It's very difficult to wind up with that rainbow, which is what you're creating there, is a rainbow. So it's
Yeah.
so difficult, but it makes all the difference. And like you said, it's just because it says Cabernet on the label doesn't mean it was just Cabernet from one vineyard. It's blending from different areas, different types of Cabernet to make a more complex,
Yeah.
interesting product. So tell us a bit about, I want to get into some of the wines, because as always happens, we're running short on time as usual. Those are the presses there I'm seeing in the background, which is very cool. But tell us a bit about, let's start with the Cabernet. Do you want to tell us a bit about the Cabernet, or did you want to show us a bit around the winery before we get to that?
No. Let's go to the tasting and just to talk about the wine. That's also the most important. So, as you know, we have complete range with Escudo Reserva coming from Casablanca, as I said, with Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir. And then we move to the other red from Maipo Valley. We have Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, and Carmenère coming from Colchagua. So, it's very important, the Cabernet Sauvignon, and we can talk about a little bit more about Cabernet Sauvignon, because we have the Cabernet Sauvignon coming from the Reserva range.
Yeah.
So coming from Maipo, we also have the Origin. Why Origin? Because it's because we started step here in the Maipo Valley, so that's why it's a Cabernet Sauvignon coming from Maipo Valley. And then also the Grand Reserva, which is with this vintage with 44% of Cabernet Sauvignon. And then the Baronesa, the new iconic and prestige wine we recently launched, which is with 76% of Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet Sauvignon, it's part of the DNA of Rothschild, as I said, coming from the left bank of Bordeaux. And very important because in the Maipo Valley, it's really the best terroir for Cabernet Sauvignon. So, but it's not the same Cabernet Sauvignon we have, obviously, in these different wines. As I said, in this approach of micro-terroir, we use first, for example, with the Cabernet Sauvignon Reserva range, we use more fruity Cabernet Sauvignon. So that means when we have our micro-terroir selection, we test all the berries to determine the right moment for the harvest, and we decide to choose the more fruity part in this Reserva range, much more oriented in the red and black fruit, but a little bit more red than black. And if you compare then with the Grand Reserva, we use more a little bit structured Cabernet Sauvignon, also with some characteristic of fruity, red and black. And then when we go through the Origin, and obviously much more in the Baroness, we choose the perfect plants with the best balance in terms of fruity aroma, but also tannin structure, because here in Chile, and it's very important to explain that, we have, as you know, as every part in the world, 3 maturities, which is the technologic maturities, the aromatic maturity, and the phenolic maturity. And in France, for example, in Bordeaux, to have these 3 maturities, you have usually a time to 7, 8, or 10 days, more or less. In Chile, you need to wait for sometimes more than 1 month, more than 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So that means you have first, obviously, the technologic maturity, which is a lot of sugar, increasing the sugar, lower acidity, but you need to wait for the right moment for the phenolic maturity. And in between, you have the aromatic maturity. So that means if you wait too long, you will have a lot of sugar. The aromatic part is going to move on the marmalade characteristic, and then you will have very soft tannin, but maybe you are losing some freshness in terms of aromatic, or maybe you have too sugar, so that means too much alcohol at the end. So we are in between and using the best well-balanced grapes for Baronesa, obviously, because it's the best wine we have in this range. So I don't know if you have all the questions before starting the tasting.
Yeah, so let's start with let's start with the Cabernet. So we can go through a quick tasting of that, but I want you to compare and contrast the Cabernet to the Origine, and let's talk specifically about the differences, because I know those are both 100% Cabernet, but they're different price points, different styles. So let's compare those two real quickly.
Yeah. So the first Cabernet, as I said, we are just looking for a little bit more freshness in terms of aroma, sorry. And this aromatic characteristic gives also a little bit more freshness you have in this reserva. And the nose, very typical of Cabernet Sauvignon. Here, after more than 1 year of bottle, the wine is very fine in terms of tannin, in terms of expression, in terms of aromatic characteristic. Oriented much more, as I said, red fruit, mix it with some black fruit, with also some fresh spices. But the dominant and the most important is the fruit. That's what we are using with this range. Fruity, very easy drinking Cabernet Sauvignon. Not very strong tannin, very elegant, coming from Maipo Valley, because that's the characteristic of Maipo, very elegant tannin.
But approachable, which is what people are looking for a lot of times, is something with that bright fruit and freshness, but the complexity, but yet approachable.
Yeah, it's a very elegant, and if you compare to the Origin, here we have a little bit more dark fruit, a little bit more black fruit. You have a more deeper noise. I mean that you have a little bit more intensity in terms of Cabernet. Here you have more freshness and easy drinking wine, easy drinking nose. You also have in this reservoir range, and in the Origin, you have more the taste and the nose of the minerality of the terroir of Maipo. You are a little bit more deeper in the expression of the terroir of Maipo. You also have a little bit more complexity coming from the oak, because in this Cabernet we are using 20% of new oak. In this Origin we are using 30% of new oak.
Okay.
So you have this influence, this note of roasted hazelnut, some notes of toffee also.
Sounds delicious. I wish I was there. And I want to mention, as you're tasting that these, all the wines that you're tasting and that we have at Touton are all 2018, which 2018 was spectacular vintage throughout Chile and particularly the Maipo.
Yes, it was really a great vintage because if you compare with 2017 was a little bit more extreme. And the 18 we were very lucky because we have more or less, we had 30% less rainfall in the total amount in the global year, but the repartition was 75% during the winter time. So that means, it was really good for the soil because we have good reserve of water and humidity in the soil, which was very good for starting the vegetable cycle in the 2018 vintage. And then we are really, we was with the best repartition between fresh moment and also some warm moment in all the year. So it helps to also wait the right moment for obviously flowering, for the moment of the harvest, we can wait for the best moment. So we talk about that with Baronesa, but we started for Baronesa, for example, the first Cabernet Sauvignon mid-April, and we finished with the last Carmenère and Petit Verdot mid-May. So that means mid-May, if you compare with the North Hemisphere, it was mid-November. So
Yeah.
just imagine, it was just magical. And I remember with Baronesa in 2018, I was tasting the grapes of Cabernet or Petit Verdot in the mid of May. Was very, sunny moment, and tasting the grapes to say, wow, it was amazing. So we can wait for the right moment for the harvest. And that's something magical when you are in the vintage, because you say, okay, if you can choose the right moment, obviously it helps a lot to determine the style of the wine, and you can help obviously to work as you want in terms of the style. So we are not giving the indication by the climate, but you are choosing what you want to do. So that's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. You're so lucky. And like, comparing it to Bordeaux, obviously, you're always battling the rains during harvest. So here it's like a paradise. You could wait as long as you want to harvest and pick the right moment. I wanted to mention real quickly, I have an image up here of recent ratings of 18s, 2018s, and 2019s, all above 90 points. It's just across the board. The Chardonnays, the Sauvignon Blancs, Pinot Noirs, up through the Cabernets, just everything is, the wine critics are loving you, which is fantastic, and we love it too, obviously. But it's whatever you're doing, it's working. So, so
So
I
now if
want to
you want
move.
to,
Oh, sorry. I was going to move into the Gran Reserva because we're running out of time. But I want to
yeah,
do Gran Reserva, and then we'll talk about Baronessa, and I want to make sure
yeah,
we have enough time.
yeah, because it's two concepts as assemblage. And as I said, the assemblage is really part of the DNA of the company, part of the DNA of Rothschild. And with obviously two different concepts. This Escudo Rojo Gran Reserva, it's our flagship wine. That's the wine the Baroness decided to create. So with the red label, very classical. And the first vintage was 99. And
Oh,
we are more close to 20 years after. We still have the same style in terms of blending, using obviously the best selection in different parts of our vineyard. This vintage 2019 is 44% of Cabernet, 39% of Cabernet, 44% of Cabernet Sauvignon, 39% of Cabernet, 11% of Syrah, 4% of Petit Verdot, and 2% of Cabernet Franc. So it's really something we can say rare, because it's not a Bordeaux blend, because we are using obviously much more Cabernet than in Bordeaux, and we also had some Syrah coming from the Rhone, if you could say. So it's a
right.
really home style wine, very typical of that we start 20 years ago with this style. We try to have the best harmony with all the grapes we are mixing here in this blend. So the most important is also to have the right combination with obviously the structure of Cabernet Sauvignon, the rawness of Carmenère, the intensity of Syrah, the tannin of the Petit Verdot, and the elegancy of the Cabernet Franc. And here we have on the nose the freshness, the typicity of a little bit dominated a little bit with the Carmenère today, but very fresh, very aromatic. And I say that's the idea. When we taste this wine, it's very difficult to say, okay, I know the percentage of each grape variety. So you really have a well assemblage, well integrated grape variety, one with each other.
Well, I always use the analogy of a chef. When a chef they're just not going to cook a steak. They're going to marinate it. They're going to add spices, seasoning, maybe serve it with a sauce to add to that complexity. And I feel like that's what you get, with this sort of a blend. You get something better than the individual varietal.
No, so, and in the mouth, you have really, that I said, it's the elegancy of this grape variety, the elegancy of this assemblage we are doing. Also keeping a little bit more freshness than the Reserva Cabernet Sauvignon, because this freshness is also giving a little bit more aging potential. So this reservoir, it's really cool, really good, very aromatic and very elegant at that moment. But if you wait 2 or 3 years more, the wine is also going to have a very good evolution in terms of bouquet, as we say in France, in terms of these aromatic characteristic, in terms of powerful we have here. And then we have a little bit softer tannin. So it's really interesting to have this comparing tasting with this Grand Reserva now and in 2 or 3 years more, because the evolution is also very beautiful. And with this vintage, with this freshness we have, with the quality of the Cabernet Sauvignon we have here, I'm pretty sure we are going to have an evolution like a blackcurrant cassis expression, which is just under the Carmenère expression, but which is coming very soon. And this is also the typicity of this Grand Reserva.
And that's something that people don't think of, because everybody thinks of Bordeaux and they're like, oh, well, of course, we're gonna age this for 3, 5, 10 years. But it's a great point that Chilean wines, in the style that you're making them, can definitely develop and age. And I don't want to say improve, because they're delicious now, but they're going to be just as delicious in a slightly more open way in a few years.
Exactly.
And
So
there's a question that just came across about the 2% Cabernet Franc to the blend. 2% seems like such a small amount, but what does that do to the final wine?
You know, Cabernet Franc, I would say it's not as I like, but it's like a mix between Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's in between a little bit. And Cabernet Franc is very elegant, very refined grape variety if you have the right terroir. So, and you know, in our 60 hectare, we only have 2 hectares of Cabernet Franc. It's a specific place. We have some stones, but we have good humidity in the soil, because that's also very good for Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Sauvignon like more very dry soil, and the Cabernet Franc likes usually a little bit more humidity, and it helps to give this elegancy. It's a small touch, but you know, that's the magical point when we are doing the assemblage. When you add 2% of Cabernet Franc, if you taste the two wines, they are really different in terms of style, in terms of elegancy, in terms of expression of the tannin. There are 2 styles of wine. So when we taste, you know, it was very difficult, because you know, for this one, we taste more than 10 times to determine the right assemblage. So it's not so easy when you have a lot of batches, but it was the case with the Cabernet Franc. Using it and not using it, the wine is completely different in terms of style.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And like I said, I really have a respect for blenders. It's so complicated. So let's get into the new release, which I'm excited about. Baronesa P.
Yes.
Yes. It hasn't even hit the shores yet, so it's on the water. It's on the way to us.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about this new wine.
Yeah, we are very proud of this one, because it's our new one. It's one we decided to create in honor to Baroness Philippe de Rothschild, because she was the one who started in Chile more than 20 years ago. And I'm very proud to this cuvée, because we decided to do really the best selection of our micro terroir, really using the best selection of Cabernet Sauvignon. It was like plant by plant, the choice of for the harvest. It's really small quantity production, and we work, you know, as really concrete wines at the chateau, iconic chateau we have in the group, and we also are very proud, because this one was rated 97 point by James Suckling. In the same vintage, Almaviva, for example, was rated 98. So we are just 1 point difference if you compare to Almaviva, which is really, wow, so great for the first vintage.
First vintage, yeah.
So, and this one, we decided to really go without any limit in terms of quality and excellency. So in every steps we test, and we obviously eliminate all the grapes or the batches were not perfect. We did also the same in terms of aging, because this one, we aged it 14 months in obviously French oak, and it was 65% of new oak. And we decided at the end to do the blending, to choose and to taste barrel and every barrels. And we taste and we say, okay, this barrel, okay, it's a perfect taste. Okay, we keep it. This one, it's not so perfect. And the balance with the oak, it's not so perfect. So, okay, we go with another cuvée. So we decided really to select as a really work as an orfèvrerie, which is really the best selection we did. And this cuvée 2018 Baronesa, it's 76% of Cabernet Sauvignon, so as the Grand Chateau we have in Bordeaux, 9% of Carmenère, 5% of Petit Verdot, 5% of Cabernet Franc, and 4.5% of Syrah. So, you know, this 5% of Cabernet Franc is also helping to the elegancy. That's what we are looking for, you know, the expression of Cabernet Sauvignon, but really the Chilean terroir with a French style expression.
It's I can't wait to get my hands on this. I know there's been a huge amount of interest in this wine. We've pre-sold a ton of it, and I know we have some extra, but it's definitely going to go quickly. And like you said, 97 points for the first production of this wine is super impressive. So whatever you're doing, it's working.
Now, you know, I'm really, it's not because we did it here, but the nose is really, for me, magical. It's like you know, an explosion of aromatic, of complexity, very intense, but very elegant. You have, you know, a lot of aromatic characteristics. You have some black fruits, you have some spices, some, you know, black fruit, black currant, black cherry, also some blackberry notes, mingling with some little touch of oak, with some toffee, with some roasted hazelnut, with some cedarwood. You know, you have a lot of steps when you are so with some oxidation, because it's a very young wine, so you need also to decant a little bit. But the nose is really complex, and as you know, as we say in the category of Grand Vin, we are not in the same category as the other range. We are more in the really top wine of all the wine we have in the world. And it, you know, it's coming more, and very long. The nose is very intense and very rich in terms of complexity. And the malts, it's very impressive because even if we have the powerful of the Cabernet Sauvignon coming first, you have a lot of elegancy. The refined tannin you have, you really taste the tannin of Maipo Valley with this Cabernet Sauvignon, very elegant. You have the also very round, and the complexity in terms of aromatic. You also have some blackcurrant, some blueberry also in the mouth, and then cedarwood, but some toffee, and then some more complex aromatic part coming from spices, black pepper, like Sichuan black pepper. Very elegant and very long and powerful finish. Lot of complexity you still with the wine, and that we wanted to create something not as over body-bodied wine, as I said sometimes, because in Chile you can wait to have some overripe grapes.
Right.
So that means at the end, as I said, it's like a marmalade, and we wanted to have like a more elegant style, refined, keeping freshness. That's also very important for us, because the freshness, it's also a very important part in the balance of the wine. So, you know, fruity part, very rich, very round, but also freshness. And this one is also with a fantastic aging potential. I would say in 5 years more, this one should be really a bomb.
Well, no, it's like I said, there's just been so much interest in it, and for those watching, it arrives. It hits our shores in a few weeks, so if you're interested, reach out to us. There's a small quantity, I believe, still available, not much. So it's really a benchmark wine within all of Chile, if not the world. So it's really exciting to get our hands on it. So Emmanuel, we're running short on time, so I just want to thank
Yeah.
you again for your time. It's an honor at Touton to represent Escudo Rojo. and to work with Baron Philippe de Rothschild. Their wines are, it's just really an honor. You know, just such a historic family and all of their estates. So on behalf of Touton, thank you. And sounds like we're going to have to do this again because there's a lot more wines to review. But I want to thank you for your time today.
No, thank you, Dave. And it's also an honor to be distributed by this family company, Touton. We have the same values. This is very important also for us.
Yep.
And I would also really to thank you very much for all the great job you are doing for all the wine and the pre-sale we did with the Baronesa. And I'm, looking forward to see you in New York or in the States, and sending a lot of, cheers and salute from Chile. It was really a pleasure. So you're welcome, whatever you want, anytime.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And for all those in the United States, Thanksgiving is next week, so make sure to grab a bottle of Escudo Rojo Cabernet or the Gran Reserva for your dinner table for Thanksgiving. And also, we are taking next Thursday off, as it is Thanksgiving. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, December 3rd, with Bruno Bory, the owner of Du Cru Beaucaillou. So we're going to see one of your old neighbors there back in Bordeaux. So it's going to be a good one as well. But thank you again,
Super.
Emmanuel. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.